Hey guys, it's good to be with you again today. We had a great vacation. Thanks for praying for us. We had a lot of fun. Um, as we start back into our series of God Time devotionals going through the book of Mark, today we're in Mark chapter 11 as we see the triumphal entry. Now, from a human perspective, Palm Sunday was the greatest day of Jesus' ministry. On this one day, he had more people following him than at any other point during his ministry on earth. Palm Sunday represents a moment of spiritual triumph because as Jesus rode into Jerusalem, he was hailed as the Messiah, the King of Israel. Now, on the very first Passover, the Israelites celebrated their exodus out of the oppression of the Egyptians. And as the crowds gathered on the road to Jerusalem for the triumphal entry, they were looking forward to this Passover being a time where they fully expected that Jesus would rise up to be their Messiah, their king who would lead them in a second exodus, who would free them from the oppression of the Romans. This is why on Palm Sunday they shouted, Hosanna, which means save us. This is why they waved palm branches, which were a Jewish symbol of national sovereignty. Here's the thing. As the crowds are shouting for Jesus, they're not thinking about going to heaven someday after they die. They're thinking Jesus is going to be our ruler here on earth right now. He's going to save us from the oppression of the Romans. And Jesus knew exactly what these crowds had in mind. In fact, he was sending a very clear message back to them. You see, every faithful Jew in those days knew that over 500 years earlier, the prophet Zechariah had prophesied in Zechariah 9:9 that a day would come when the Messiah, the new king of Israel, would come riding into Jerusalem on a colt, the foal of a donkey. This is why it's so significant that Jesus arranged in advance for two of the disciples to bring him a colt so that he could ride it into the city. Jesus knew exactly what he was doing, the message he was sending. As he rode that foal, it was a kind of, as he rode that donkey, it was a kind of enacted parable, an act of self disclosure by which Jesus was telling everybody, this is who I am. I am the Messiah. Up until this point, he'd been traveling around Israel as a kind of wandering rabbi, but now he's going into the capital city to announce, I'm the king, I'm the Messiah. I have come to fulfill God's covenant with his people. That's why the crowds went crazy. They were ready for a new king, they were ready for a new Exodus. Of course, on the other hand, it didn't take long for all of those cheering followers from Palm Sunday to abandon Jesus. They felt like he had let them down. On Good Friday, they were no longer interested in following where Jesus was leading. On Good Friday, the cost of following Jesus was simply too high, and so the crowds rejected him. Now, over the last few years, really, I don't know, the last 10 to 15 years, I have found myself thinking a lot about the nature of faith and what it means to be a follower of Jesus. And I've kind of thought about Palm Sunday and Good Friday as sort of categories in my life. Where am I living? Where do I want to live? Because following Jesus has to be about more than saying the right words to Jesus. On Palm Sunday, the crowds loved Jesus. As he enters the city of Jerusalem, they shouted, Hosanna! Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Less than a week later, many in the same crowd shouted at the top of their lungs, Crucify him! And as you read the story, you have to sort of wonder, how is it that the crowds could be so fickle? But then, of course, I can be so fickle. I think that's why these 2 days have fascinated me so much. I can relate to the crowds in Jerusalem. In my own life, I have had seasons where following Jesus felt natural and exciting, and I loved to do it. It was kind of like Palm Sunday. And then there have been times where on good days I dreaded following Jesus, and on bad days I didn't feel like following him at all. Those seasons were kind of like Good Friday. Now, I don't know if you can relate to this at all, but as I've looked at my life, I've wondered, how can all of that stuff be in there? How is it that my own feelings towards Jesus can be so volatile, up one day and down the next? The people of Jerusalem were willing to follow Jesus when they liked where he was headed, when he was headed towards the place where they wanted him to go, to be the triumphant Messiah, to be their king. Yay, we want to follow Jesus now. But when Jesus headed towards the cross, well, they said, that's not what I signed up for. That's not part of my agenda. Sadly, I can relate to their attitude. In my own life, I have a tendency to only follow Jesus when it's easy and convenient, or when I like where Jesus is leading me. Today, I want to end with a few questions. Are you willing to follow Jesus wherever he leads you, or are you only willing to follow him if you like where he's going? I think this is the question that Palm Sunday and Good Friday forces us to ask. Are we only going to follow Jesus during the good times? Or are we willing to follow Jesus during the tough times when he leads us into suffering? Do we only want to follow him when he is headed towards a throne and he's going to be in charge and it's all going to be good? Or are we willing to follow him to the cross when he calls us to join him and come and die on our own cross right alongside with him? That's the question of Palm Sunday and Good Friday. And something for you to think about this week. God bless you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.